Hey, it's Jared with Ditch Auto, and I'm kicking off a series that is long overdue because I've been talking about doing this for over a year now, and that is why I switched from Canon to Sony. Now, you can see a few Sony products that I have here on this table, and I wanted to talk to you briefly about why first. I'm going to go through this in several videos because there's a lot of different reasons why I switched. There's a lot of different things that I've discovered after I've switched. You know, definitely pros, maybe even a few cons along the way that I'd like to discuss as well. But they're not for everybody because I shoot certain things. I shoot weddings, I shoot people, portraits, motorsports and stuff like that. Don't do a lot of landscapes, but when I do shoot some landscapes, there's reasons why Sony might be better versus maybe Canon or Nikon might be better. So I'm gonna break this up into several different videos so that I can talk specifically to some of those things. But first, I just wanna go through why I switched to Sony and give you a brief overview of what that looks like. So the first thing before we really talk about anything else is it just has to do with newness. And by newness, I mean like new features, kind of things that are changing. Now, Canon, through all of their 5D models, which is what I was most recently shooting with, hasn't made a whole lot of changes, especially since the 5D Mark II, which brought the ability to shoot video. After that, Canon really hadn't done a whole lot as far as adding new features. Sure, they made the camera a little bit faster with the Mark III, added a second SD card slot or CF card slot, and a few little things like that. But nothing really has changed. When I started paying attention to the Sony Alpha mirrorless line, I had already tried Canon's forte into mirrorless, which was a total fail. And I really just didn't have a whole lot of faith in Canon to bring leading edge technology to photography. I feel like their brand is so strong, they don't really need to right now. It's just a kind of a bummer. But Sony has came along and really started adding some new features into their cameras and even improving upon features that they've had for a while that now Canon with some of their models are finally starting to add. And then if you want to talk about Nikon has had some of these features hit or miss just as well as Canon, but has not really been a supporter of some of these newer features. So the first thing is just portability. These Sony cameras are much lighter and smaller than their counterparts with Canon and Nikon. And I say counterparts, I'm really comparing these cameras to what I've used before, which would be the Canon 5D Mark III, Canon 70D, Canon 6D, those models, which are not mirrorless cameras, however, are I guess comparable when you think of price to some of these cameras, lens options and stuff like that. And it's only thing that I can honestly compare to all of you is what I was using before and what I'm using now. So I'm able to carry two bodies comfortably and the lenses that I'm used to carrying, which is great because I could have two bodies on me, not one because of weight and size issues. If I'm trying to keep my carry, whatever I'm carrying as far as a bag goes, to a reasonable size, obviously if I want to have lens options, I might have to sacrifice and only bring one body, or in order to bring two bodies, I might have to sacrifice leaving a lens out. So there's always a sacrifice there, but with these smaller camera bodies being so small and compact, you have a lot more room to play with, and even some of the lenses are smaller, so you could even bring more glass with you as well. So size is one issue, but these are kind of what I would consider fluff reasons. They're not really that exciting of reasons. I mean, what it really comes down to is performance. And for me, I've always been about performance. The only reason that I've upgraded my cameras whenever a new version would come out, and upgraded glass even when a new version came out, because I want the best performance. I'm shooting weddings and I'm shooting in situations where the lighting is usually pretty low, and I want something that performs. When Sony came out with their A7S camera, it just blew everything out of the water, and most of you probably already know that. Maybe have even tried an A7S. And to me, to be able to take a camera and go into extremely low light situations and take very nice quality photos that seemingly were lit or in better ambient daylight is great. I don't have to worry about extra lights and getting too crazy with my situation. I can continue to shoot with my kind of semi-documentary style, kind of floating around, capturing photos. I don't have to worry so much about setting up every shot. And at weddings, during receptions, you don't want to be doing that. So Sony provided that, a better performing camera, actually at a better price. That comes to my next thing, price. These cameras, although in this last year, the newer versions with this camera, the A7R II and the A7S II, have seen a hike in price, which I believe is rightfully so. Their performance are superior, so they can be priced a little bit higher. Though it's a bummer because it means maybe not purchasing as many camera bodies or having as many available, or maybe for myself waiting a little bit longer as I haven't bought the A7S II yet. But the price was very reasonable. The price for the lenses is very reasonable in comparison to the top notch of what's available for Canon. So price was a big thing as well. When I initially sold off all of my Canon equipment and bought all of the equivalent equipment on this Sony Mirrorless platform, I had several $1,000s left over, which I was then able to buy a couple of other lenses that I normally I didn't have the money for when I was shooting Canon. There was a new extremely wide aperture lens with a 0.95 aperture 50mm lens that I wanted to buy. I would have never spent that money on something with Canon because they typically were more expensive and I didn't have that extra money. But since I had a little bit of extra money left over after selling my Canon equipment, I went ahead and tried it. So there's a lot that goes into the specifics as to why I switched and why I've stayed switched, because I've seen a lot of people post videos about, you know, they got a Sony camera and they just couldn't make the switch. They ended up selling it and sticking with their Canon or their Nikon. I totally understand that. I've had those moments during the last year as well. And so in these future videos, we're going to talk about autofocus with fast-moving objects, which is something that has been a slight challenge with Sony as compared to when I was shooting with Canon and what those shooting with Nikon would expect from their cameras. The fact that a majority of the glass is an f4 aperture, a lot of these zooms are f4 aperture, which means you can't shoot as wide as you can with most of the Canon and Nikon glass, which we're used to seeing an f2.8 aperture. So there's that. Even this lens here, the 7200, which is a flagship lens for most of us photographers, is a f4 and not an f2.8 lens, which was initially a frustration to me. Now, we'll also talk about shooting with an adapter, with a Metabones adapter, and using our existing Canon glass. And then I will also talk about why I opted not to do that, why I decided to sell all my Canon glass and go with native Sony E-mount glass as well. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. There are a lot of reasons, and to be honest, my reasons are my own, and your reasons for considering switching are going to be probably different than mine. For you to follow in my footsteps and switch because I say it's better for whatever reason would not be a good reason. That's where the comment section underneath this video come into play. If you have a question that's specific to what you're doing, I would love to try and answer it. And if I don't have an answer for it, I'll try and find one for you. But that's where the rubber hits the road is, what are your needs? What is the performance that you're looking for out of your camera? Because there's nothing wrong with Canon and Nikon. They're great cameras and they capture great photos. So what would be the reasons for you to switch? And that is what I would want to help you discover before you decide to go selling off a bunch of your other equipment or something like that. So thanks for checking out this video. Make sure to check out the links in the description below this video that will take you to the other videos as part of this series. And then in the comment section below that, please make sure and ask any questions that you have. On this channel, there's also a variety of other kind of questions answered as well as some reviews on some of these Sony products that I've picked up over the last year. So thanks so much for checking out this video. If you like it, please click the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel here if you would like to see more. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Ditch Auto.